My topic is supported leadership. I've had the pleasure to be involved in several supported leadership opportunities and initiatives in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania over the last 20 years. And learning from the past, shaping the future. It's a powerful conference title, and it's an important call for leadership development. Across the globe, there's a new concept of disability, an expansion of the concept of diversity, and with it, new roles, new relationships, new challenges, and new opportunities. But the big cry, regardless of the specific language, is nothing about me without me. Some of the forces that have moved to change to a new paradigm have been the general human rights movements, the civil rights movement in the United States and in other states, the growing and important parent movements that resulted in changing laws, redefinition of disability, and the globalization of this. Forces that have moved us to a new paradigm are reflected in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which has become an international law, and I understand Israel has ratified it, and with great shame I say that the United States has not. Not yet. Not yet. We're working on it. Some of the negative forces that have moved us forward to a new paradigm of disability sought to end discrimination, end institutionalization, end exclusion and segregation, improve access, equalize opportunity, shift power, and recognize that disability is a natural part of the human experience, which does not diminish the right of individuals with a disability to enjoy the opportunity to live independently, to enjoy self-determination, to make their choices, our choices, to contribute to society, and to experience full integration and inclusion in the economic, political, social, and cultural educational mainstream of American society. This is the preamble for the Developmental Disabilities Assistance and Bill of Rights amendments in the United States. The disability rights movement demonstrated that disability is not synonymous with illness or dependency, that disability is as much a function of disabling environments and attitudes as it is physical, cognitive, sensory, or communication limitations. So, one way of looking at disability is expanding the concept of diversity, to recognize that and help us view a societal view of disability in the same way that we have come to recognize other minority cultures, that their experience of marginalization, discrimination, access, poverty, education, and power, to look for aspects of affirmative action and employment, to be included in hate crimes, and this, not that we encourage hate crimes, but at least to look at the crimes against other minority groups and the crimes against people simply because of their status, and to look at decision making. These new challenges and opportunities now and in the future result in a shift in power, hopefully, in roles, relationships between professionals and people with disabilities, self-determination, self-advocacy, shift in defining who is the expert, and clearly the nothing without me, nothing about me without me. All of this, if not explicitly, implicitly looks at the potential for leadership. In fact, the UN law, the UN Convention, cites with its 50 articles, many of them call for leadership development. Article 3, general principles, equality of opportunity, full and effective participation and inclusion in society. Article 6, awareness raising. State parties undertake to adopt immediate, effective, and appropriate measures to promote awareness of the capabilities and contributions of persons with disabilities. Article 24, education. State parties to recognize the right of persons with disabilities to education, ensure an inclusive education system at all levels, and lifelong learning without discrimination and on an equal basis with others, with reasonable accommodation. Again, not explicitly stating leadership, but looking at the opportunities to promote and support leadership. Article 29, participation in political and public life. States parties shall guarantee to persons with disabilities political rights and opportunities to enjoy them on an equal basis with others. And substatement, promote actively an environment in which persons with disabilities can effectively and fully participate in the conduct of public affairs. Another call for leadership. So what is a leader? What is leadership? There are lots of definitions, and I like the penguin one. The leader always sets the trail for others to follow. So a leader is a person who rules, guides, or inspires others to follow. A person with vision, a person with integrity, passion, empathy, courage, and know-how. And leadership, a process by which a person influences others to accomplish an objective or directs the organization or others in a way that makes it more cohesive and coherent, makes the followers want to achieve goals rather than simply bossing people around. So here are some leaders. We know, for instance, who is this leader? Martin Luther King. He was a great American civil rights leader. Who is this leader? No. Mahatma Gandhi. He was a great Indian leader who taught us how to effect change through passive resistance. Who is this leader? Golda Meir. She was a prime minister of Israel and had to lead the people of Israel through a very difficult war. I'll go quickly. Who is this leader? Nelson Mandela. After spending more than 25 years in prison, he was the first freely elected president of South Africa after the end of apartheid. Do you know who this leader is? Ed Roberts. I'm not going to show the video. Ed Roberts was probably the first person who started, he was a survivor of polio, lived all his life on a respirator, and led the beginnings of the independent living movement in the United States. Do you know who this leader is? Meredith Allen. From Melbourne, Australia, Meredith is a consistent leader in the GOSCI and ISAC. These are international and national organizations. She has introduced the idea of an AAC, an augmentative alternative communication culture. And she's a woman with cerebral palsy. Do you know, anyone know who this leader is? See, we know the able-bodied ones. Michael is the granddad of AAC in the U.S. He's also the editor of Alternative Speaking, which is a newsletter written for and by people who don't speak in traditional ways or communicate in traditional ways, and he's a partner in the only rehabilitation research center in America. Anyone know who this leader is? He came to the conference 4 years ago. Martin Pistorius. Originally from South Africa, Martin lives with his wife in the UK. He's an author. He frequently testifies before Parliament about the rights of people who cannot speak. He also spent years in an institution, was in a coma, and people had written him off. Anyone know who this leader is? Carolyn Morgan, an experienced self-advocate, former president of our Pennsylvania Speaking for Ourselves chapter, became the co-chair of the Policy Advisory Committee for our state office on developmental disabilities, founding member of Self Advocates United, woman with intellectual disabilities has been honored and should be honored for her leadership. These are other leaders. They're all people with intellectual disabilities. They've all had support in development of their leadership and continue to have support to be the active leaders that they are. So very briefly, what is supported leadership? It's promoting, encouraging, and supporting people with intellectual disabilities to be active, become active, contributing, and valued members of boards and committees that affect their lives as well as the lives of others. So it's promoting, encouraging, and continuing to support the leadership of these individuals. There are two components to supported leadership. Training, many of us had some training to become leaders, and supports. Training of the individual with intellectual disabilities who wants to be a leader, also training of the support person to not be the leader, but to be the supporter, the enabler, and to train board and decision members how to listen and respect, if they don't already do, the contributions of leaders who just happen to also have intellectual disabilities. Also, another component is individual supports. Individual supports to the individual with intellectual disabilities, as well as the board and committee members, so they can learn to be not just themselves the leaders, but to share leadership and provide the opportunities for the exercise of leadership amongst their co-members with intellectual disabilities. 1 minute, I know. Oh, 2 minutes, good. So, supported leaderships, the types of training. In general, there's, assertiveness, self-determination, decision-making. Some of us, our whole lives, we've been fortunate enough to have that informally developed in us. Being a good listener, presentation and communication skills, identifying the supports you need to exercise your leadership. Some of the specific types of training: how groups work, running a meeting, asking questions, voting, specific content of the meetings, how to sign documents and how to refuse to sign some documents, and how to train the support person so that you are the leadership, the decision maker, and not the support person. Some of the individual leadership supports, again, that the individual needs, some personal needs about mobility, orientation, dietary, medication, hygiene, bathroom, all the personal needs. Transportation needs, using public transportation, arranging transportation, paying for public transportation, and any other transportation needs in society where it's not fully yet accessible. Personal needs, how to work in groups, what I need to do, going over meeting materials, saying exactly what I want to say, even though I may say it differently, staying on topic, reminders, phone calls, all the things that take years and years and years to develop in all of us, with or without supports. Oops. Questions to ask of the individual with intellectual disability, so that the person knows, and the support person, what will be my duties as your support person? Do I need any specific training, and who will do it? How many hours each month will I need to support you? And by the way, I do this personally on my own, so some of this is from literature experience, but some of it's from very personal experience. Will I get paid, or am I doing it voluntarily? What do I need to know about the group and the members? And then questions that the supported leader needs to ask, or might want to ask of themselves. Am I willing to work with a person? This is, again, to the support person. Am I really willing to work with a person who has intellectual disability? Do I really, truly, authentically respect that person as an emerging leader? Can I really let the person speak for his or herself? It's a very powerfully important, reflective questions to ask. Am I able to accept a commitment to support a person? Do I have the time, and so forth? There's lots and lots of resources that are available that address supported leadership. But the big one is to address the question as Gandhi would. We must become the change we want to see. So if this were a smaller group, and I'm delighted perhaps that it's not a smaller group, to ask ourselves, what is one thing that I can personally do to implement Gandhi's call as it relates to supporting the leadership of an individual who just happens to have intellectual and other developmental disabilities? Tada rabah.